the first group of letters, and we're working with the letters in their groups, it's always preferable to work with the letters in their groups rather than in alphabetical order, because by working with them in their groups, you have something called positive reinforcement, so you remember the structure of the letter much more easily. So we're going to start with the I, because it's the simplest letter. So we have I, N, M, U, V, and W. I'm going to show you some little tips about these finial points, or the ending points. There are variations to this, of course. So I normally rest the nib on the page and I go up on a little turn and down and stop, up and back on myself. So essentially, I'm going to do this. I'm going to use the 5 to show it to you a little bit more easily. 1, 2, 3, up and back. So I'm not doing this and this and this, because that's a different script. Just put an X over it there. What I'm aiming for little line, stop, turn on a penny. So it's a very tight turn. Come down, stop, turn, up and back. The reason why it's important to go up and back is you might end up with flicking. When you flick the stroke, it's very difficult to control where it's going to end up. So it's always preferable to stop, up and back, because that stops you from getting an extended finial stroke. The next group in this simplified italic belongs to the same as the straight group that we've just seen in the I, N, M, U, V, and W. This group is the ltjhyf group, and I will also add in the F here, as it's also part of the straight set. So where we saw I to the N, it's really important that we understand these two letters, especially as we have an L, which is essentially a long I, a T, which starts just above that line, and you come back along that curve and out. J, essentially another long letter like the I, but with a little movement to the left. H, like the N, and Y. Essentially, the U, and we go back on ourselves to give ourselves a bracketed finial. So we see two different types of endings here. I'm adding in the F, because the F is actually a straight letter, but it's also a very difficult letter because it covers an ascender, an X height, and a descender. Back on yourself, straight down, and it's under the X height like the T. So some more detailed analysis of these letters. In the H, we'll work next to this. We stop at the base and we come back up through the letter. Little turn stop, little turn, up and back in. So I hope you're noticing that I'm not rushing the letters. I'm really taking my time with them, especially at the top and the bottom. Wherever the letters leave or touch a line, that's where you need to be the most careful with the letters. I'm also going to show you how to do these bracketed serifs. So we go up and back over ourselves and down. It's very easy to make this quite sloppy, and you end up with an overlapping break there, which sort of looks like this, and you end up with a rougher serif rather than something that's a little bit more accurate. As this is a marker, we can go back on ourselves. Some people would do the downstroke and then come back and do the bracket. It's entirely up to you. I find that going back and over and down adds a little bit of rhythm to the script. Equally, on the underside, we see 1 and 2 and slow and push and back and lift. I'm lifting up and in the ink rather than pulling out, because if you pull out this way, you pluck the ink, so you can end up with a slightly messier mark. Moving on from the straight group, we have the bold-based letters. So these are called bold-based because they have an inner counter space, like a bowl. So we had the I, where we went up and over and back and back. So the O, now I use a little trick that I developed, which is I put a little mark to indicate the width of the nib, and I start below that mark and I come back up over the mark. The reason why I do this is if you make the whole shape from the top, you always end up going just over that line. So by making the shape from the bottom and adding the top, you end up with a letter that is even on both sides. As you can see, this is slightly lopsided. So we have O, A, push back on yourself, up, stop, down, up and back. E starts at the middle, up and over and back and out. And C, and 1 and 2 and 3. Notice the C is actually shorter than the A. The reason for that is if you make the C too long, by the time you come back up, you're going to end up with something resembling an A rather than a C. These letters are a lot more complicated than they look. Take your time with them. I'll just rewrite them here. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and back on yourself and down and stop and up and wait and down and out and middle and up and over and back and out and shorter and back and down and up and stop. The next set of letters in the series is a combination of the bold-based and the straight letters. So from this point on, we see the letters combining with both the circular letters and the straight letters. So we have D, G, and Q. So we did the A, and so we have the D is a composite of the A and the L, G, another form of the A plus the J. So I'm going to make that a little bit longer. So notice it's lining up with the first stroke of the second stroke of the A and Q. Now, some people put a little bit of a finial there to match the angle of the script, just to give that Q shape. The next group in the series is the B, the P, and the R. This is essentially an A shape in the upside down form. So whereas with the A we see back on yourself and down and up and down, the B is a combination of a long stroke, as is the P. So we have B, up, back, down, and back. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and touch. So I've left that open to show you how this finial stroke, which we saw in the J and the G, come back into play. So we have B, take a time, P. Now the P goes just a little bit above that line. And then what I normally do is I come back up. I'm ghosting this. So I'm not actually on the ink. I'm above it. And I go back in. And the R is 1 and part of that stroke. So if we hide this, you can see where the R is. So I'm going to look at this a little bit larger because this stroke is a little bit more complicated. So we have B, push back, up and down, and there. Do you see where the stroke is starting to get thin because you're going to push back in on yourself? And that is the height of the nib. So if you come too far down, you're going to end up underneath the line. So just be a little bit careful with that. So let's do that again. P. Let's look at the R again. Actually, let's look at the P first. So go back in through the P and push out and down and back on yourself. You can do this in a number of strokes where you go 1, 2, 3 and stop there and actually come back from the left into the right. And that R again, like doing an N or an M. And so you see the N shape there. So just be a little bit careful with these shapes. Remember, the more complex or more difficult the shape, the slower you have to approach it. If you approach the shape too quickly, you're going to overshoot the angle or overshoot the turn. From here on in, we work with 4 other letters, and they are quite difficult. So that's why they're at the end of the letter groups. The other reason they're at the end of the letter groups is because some of the parts of these letters are slightly different to the base strokes that we saw. So it requires you looking at the base strokes in a slightly different aspect. So we have the K and the S and the Z and the X. K and the S and the Z So as you can see, there are strokes in here that you haven't encountered before directly, but we can see parts of these strokes from the previous letters. So let's look at that in a little bit more detail. Up and in. Take the next stroke from here. So notice I've gone up and down and out and back. I didn't just do that, because by making a little turn and down and a little turn, it creates a little bit of openness here and here, as opposed to producing a really solid line, because a diagonal line with a broad edge nib will always produce the thickest stroke at this point, and you want the stroke to be a little bit lighter. So the S, remember, go back and under and down and back and stop and back. So that gives us a shape that looks something like this, where the balance is over this stem. This stem is not a straight line. It moves ever so gently. So think of it going one and around and back and around. Just be really careful and slow and gentle with it, and it will work. The Z we have up and back. So notice it's the same shape on either side, and slide along the edge of that nib. Some people put a line across the Z because of this thin line. The thin line is so thin that it sometimes just collapses under the weight of the other two lines. So this horizontal bar sometimes helps it to stabilize itself. The X is not this. It's the same stroke, little up, little turn, down and out and back, and one and through the middle and back. So we have that shape, which is a new shape for the letters. It's different to the ones that we encountered at the beginning. You can also do this and stop and that, so we end up with that. This stroke, it's not a straight line. Again, it sort of mimics the S, where the S does a fairly large curve. This does a slightly diminished curve. And so this can either be a curling line or two shorter lines. Notice this comes out of here and this comes out of here. So understanding what's happening with these more complex shapes is really important. Remember, take your time with them, don't rush them.